So Moses here with w.a.production, and in this video we're going to be taking a little look at how Meduza get their signature sound and how we can use WA plugins to get the same sound and vibe in our productions. So we'll be taking a little look at kick drum design, bass sound design, and how they kind of create the atmospheres and vocal kind of signature sounds that they use. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So as with any electronic artist, one of their signature sounds obviously comes from their bass line, so that's what we'll take a look at first. So for this bass line, I've used w.a.production's Babylon. There will be more info at the end on how you can get your hands on all the plugins I'm using, so stick around for that to find out how to get access to them. I like reusing Babylon because it's an FM synth and it's got some really cool characteristics to it. Each waveform has tons and tons of options for sound generation, and it's just quite a unique sounding synth that's also easy to use. I find that a lot of FM synths actually can be quite cumbersome to use. FM8 is quite notorious for actually not being the most friendly thing to use, so this is a great way of getting that FM sound in a very manageable, familiar package. So a big signature with the Meduza bass lines is they have this real kind of analog feeling. So you kind of want flabbier bass lines that kind of have a bit of detuning going on and don't necessarily sound so perfect. You could obviously use something like an analog synth to do it, but obviously not everybody has access to these. So we'll look at how I've made this patch in Babylon to kind of recreate that feeling whilst also giving it a digital kind of modern edge. So this is just how I started with the sound, with just the oscillator one, which is just a very simple sine wave. Then we have oscillator 2, which is a saw wave, which kind of provides a bit of that detuning sound and also some of that analog quality that we want. And then we have oscillator 3, which is frequency modulating oscillator 2, which kind of provides a bit of unpredictability, which again we want because analog synths are a bit unpredictable and don't necessarily follow a common format of equal kind of reproduction of notes every time. The main way that I find is a good way to get this kind of fat sound though is obviously all from the filtering. So and you can hear that immediately gives us that kind of low-key sound. A lot of Meduza's songs have very atmospheric, minimal kind of vibes, and that's what I was trying to recreate with this song, just to give you an idea of how they might go about getting that kind of feeling and atmosphere. One of the best ways to get that atmosphere is obviously just to add a reverb. Now you could take this patch a bit further by adding kind of reverb and effects and distortion and maybe even layering in some different synths, but that would be up to you and how you might want to approach it. For the bare minimum of this sound, this is all we really need. Just kind of a nice warm saw wave with some nice filtering going on. You will notice as well that there is some automation happening just on the distortion and the filter, just to provide a little bit of interest as the song goes on. So as you may know, with this kind of minimal style of EDM, it's all about automation on the channels you have to make the best use of the sparse soundscape that we create. Now, Meduza's tracks have a lot of melody and kind of harmonics in them. Now, we could try and recreate this with the bass line, however, it's normally easier just to layer on some synths. So for this, we've added in some plucks from I'm Perfect and Babylon, and we'll just run through these and kind of see how we can create that kind of overtones that we want to create the atmosphere and the vibe that Meduza might go for. So for this first pluck, it's just a very simple pluck using I'm Perfect, and it's just one of the presets from the plucks. All of these presets are available on the w.a website, so definitely go and check them out if you want to kind of expand the packs you have for these synthesizers. You can see that there is quite a few options here, and I won't go through it just because it will probably load up. But it's a very simple pluck that just goes over the bass line, so when the bass line is also soloed in with it, we get... And now it's very simple, it's not meant to overtake the bass line, it just provides a little bit of interest and a little bit of ear candy to listen to, so it's not just latched onto one thing. The main effect really comes from this second patch though, in Babylon. And now I wanted this to complement the bass line and keep that kind of eerie tone of like the kind of keys that they have in a lot of their songs. So again, it's just a very simple waveform from an instrument. So I've used the organ waveform here, organ 13, and then a sine wave, and then doing a little bit of frequency modulation on the sine wave. We've also got quite a short attack and decay with a long reverb happening, and the filter, which opens up slowly rather than quickly. And we've got a little bit of a lo-fi happening to kind of give it a bit of an eerie texture. However, this sound is not much without the effects processing that we've got running, so we'll quickly run through the effects chain I've got set up in Ableton to see how I'm creating that kind of atmosphere and eerie texture that we are looking for. So this is it with the audio effect racked off. And then this is it with on. So we've got a distortion that's fully wet. This is then running through the w.a.production Make Me Scream. I find that sometimes adding distortion after reverb is a really great way of bringing out the colour and character of the reverb. This is especially useful when you're using it as quite an obvious effect. Obviously, if you're using it more as a kind of effects processing unit to kind of give something a bit of space, and I might not use it, but for these applications it's really great. So we've got Make Me Scream just on the fuzz setting here. We've then got an EQ8 which just gets rid of the low end muddiness and makes it a bit more airy, then a chorus to widen it, and then a sidechain compressor, which just makes the reverb duck with the beat and give it a bit of a character. Otherwise it just sounds like a bit of a, you know, empty space happening. See how that reverb really helps to give the effect and kind of give a bit of character to the whole track, keeping that minimal vibe without taking away too much from what we're trying to do. So next, let's take a look at the synth pad we've got running. So this is taking inspiration from one of their most recent releases, which uses a very minimal effect again, and this really eerie kind of synth pad happens. So we've heard what this sounds like, and it's just another patch from Imperfect. Again, I really enjoy using Imperfect, especially for pads and more ambient sounds. It's just got a really great source of soundscapes, and they're nice presets. They're easy to just grab, use and throw in, and they really do work in any kind of environment and in any kind of situation. And again, this has got a lot of reverb happening on the tail end of it, and I'm using the Mutant Reverb by w.a.production again, and this has got the internal ducker happening. So as the signal is playing through the reverb, we don't hear any of the reverb, and then when the signal stops, the reverb releases and we get the sound that we want. And then this is followed up by a sidechain. And I find that this really does sound really cool in amongst the whole track, so we'll just get a little preview of what that might sound like. So you can hear how that really does give a bit of energy and a bit of interest to the end of that cycle. And again, if we are going to be doing kind of minimal EDM production, it's key to have little snippets in there like this to create interest and create pace throughout the piece. So one of the other key characteristics of Meduza is the use of their vocals, and it's how they chart so regularly because it has that hook that is immediately identifiable and easy to latch onto. Obviously, not all of us have access to world-class vocals, and not all of us are lyricists. So I've just used one of the w.a.production vocal sample packs, the melodic dubstep one to be precise, to find some vocals that worked with this track, and this is what they sound like. There aren't many effects happening with this. I've just used vocal synth to very simply pitch down the lower one. And you can hear that pitching it down kind of gives it that kind of deep house kind of quality that we might want, that Meduza kind of go for in a lot of their songs, and gives it kind of trippy, otherworldly vibe, which is really useful. I've then just layered the standard vocal on top of it and put some reverb on it, so that it all sounds like this when we play. So I'd recommend going and checking out the website, as we do have loads of great sample packs that could just add a little bit of an edge to your productions, especially if you can't find or don't have the time to find a singer and get them all recorded. It's definitely a great way of quickly laying down hooks and inspiration. So one of the big characteristics of the Meduza songs that I've found is they have these really big fat kick drums. They sound quite synthetic, so for this I've used kick 2 to generate the kick drum, and we'll take a little look at this. So you can see that it's got quite a nice tail, and it ends down around the root note that we were using. And has quite a nice kind of top end kick that sounds like this. So again, you want this kind of big nice kick to provide a lot of the sub and low end energy of the song. This can also be doubled up with the bass line, and when you're doing this, make sure that your bass line and your kick aren't clashing, as there is a lot of sub low end information going on in the kick, so something just to be important to bear in mind. You can use spectrum analyzers or your ear just to check that they're kind of happening in the same regions and nothing weird or like obtruse is happening. We've then just got a very basic hi-hat pattern, which I'll just take the kicks and the claps out so we can hear. Just a kind of bog standard kind of 4 on the floor rhythm of hi-hats. Now this can be done according to taste, but the main element where Meduza really get their high-end from is in the shakers. So I've used a w.a.production shaker loop, and we'll just check that out now. So you can hear that it's nothing particularly special or interesting. However, I've used a technique in Ableton to kind of give it a bit of a story and a bit of characteristic, because obviously if you just put a shaker loop down, you're stuck with that loop for the whole song. So something that I've done is, in each of the regions, you'll notice that I've changed the warping mode to beats, have it preserve transients, and then just lessened the gate a little bit to let less of the transient through. You'll notice that as I click through, each one changes in the gate length, and I've just crossfaded, which gives it that kind of feeling of... And I find this is quite a nice technique to kind of spice up your loops and make them not as static and kind of single usage. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that you gained a little bit more insight into how Meduza create their signature sound using minimal techniques and atmospheres to create a very eerie yet energetic dance track. All the synths and samples I've used are available through our website, and they're all linked down in the description. We now also have a membership option, so you subscribe to a monthly fee and you can gain access to all the plugins that I've used and a whole host more. Make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and comment to see if you have any extra tips on how to create the Meduza signature sound. Look forward to the next one and seeing you guys then. Take it easy.